if you were tuned in yesterday, Dennis Nangle, one of our program officers, has been on paternity leave, but before he went on his leave time, he recorded a segment that we're going to listen to in this next session. Before we tee that up, we know that there's been some audio and video issues for some of you out in the field. We know that others of you are hearing everything just fine. This is a typical bandwidth issue. Perhaps Wednesday afternoon is turning out to be worse than yesterday, Tuesday afternoon. But in addition to logging off and logging on again, which is always an option, it kind of refreshes things, if you are on any kind of VPN network, it might be smart to just log out of that and try accessing the conference just from your internet connection, and realizing you might not have access to all your applications that way, but you'll get a clearer sound and video experience if you try that. So one option for you. So again, we're going to have a recorded demonstration of some web tools, and we will have a couple of knowledge checks built into this throughout. So watch for some poll questions, and we will check in with you at a few points in this presentation. So Mitchell, we are ready to play the video.
Hello. Welcome to this brief presentation about web tools for grant administration and research. I am happy once again to join you virtually as I provide a mini presentation / demonstration of different web tools that might be helpful for you. And as you can see from the title, they're broken down into two primary areas: either administration that can help you with just the day-to-day grant administration functions, and then the research element, which actually might help you, tools that might help you make more data-driven decisions based on various factors. If it's your sub-grants, if it's other priorities that you want to focus on with your own grant funds, these tools might be helpful for you. The first tool I want to talk about is the Grants Estates Manual. I would say this is our primary administrative tool. It takes the place of what was formerly the extranet. Some of you who have been here for a couple of years might remember that the former extranet was behind a password. It was on the IMLS website. It has since migrated to the Grants Estates Manual, and that is not password protected, so it's pretty easy to access. And it is the primary source of guidance for your grant. And what that means is you might have seen this in some of the grant award language, but it's already, instead of other grant programs that have terms and conditions, our terms and conditions are all laid out in the policies and the guidance that are in the Grants Estates Manual. Many of you are probably already aware of where the Grants Estates Manual is located on the IMLS website, but as you can see from the breadcrumb trail up here, you start at the grants area, and then grant programs, and then there's a Grants Estates section, and then there's the Grants Estates Manual. I highly recommend once you navigate here to just bookmark the URL. It's much easier that way. I just wanted to kind of show you some of the various sections, how the manual is broken down. There's a couple of really valuable areas that you might see yourself returning to a lot. You can see some of the information about the 5-year plan guidelines are here under 5-year plan and evaluation. That's pretty straightforward. This area in particular can be very helpful. There's a lot of fluctuating timelines, both for both of the grants that you're managing at the same time. So clicking on these calendars helps kind of remind you of the various due dates. A lot of our guidance is listed here. So if you have questions about some cost questions that are coming your way, whether it's at the state library or from a subrecipient, this is a good place to look first. We're happy to help you with any questions you have, but sometimes it's helpful to look at the existing guidance that's already here. And also, too, a lot of helpful information can be found under presentations and conferences. all of the content from previous Grants to States conferences are in this section right here. So by clicking on these links, it'll take you to a page that's dedicated to all of the information. These can be a little bit hard to find sometimes, so I like to point out where these are specifically. The next tool I want to briefly touch on is the System for Award Management website, or SAM.gov. I'm sure that an overwhelming majority of you are very familiar with SAM.gov. I won't spend too much time on this. I just want to highlight how critical this system is for our grant award process. We cannot administer or provide any additional grant awards until an entity has an active SAM.gov registration. And I just want to briefly cover the system and also discuss how it interacts with our eGMS system on the administrative end. So SAM.gov is a fairly straightforward system, and all you'll typically use it for is to ensure that your entity is registered and eligible for federal assistance. So I just wanted to briefly point out how it interacts with IMLS's grant award process via eGMS. So prior to making annual Grants to States awards, or any awards that come from the Grants to States office, we do what is called a pre-award check, and that includes using the eGMS to check each state library entity for a current and active SAM registration. So these screenshots show how the data on SAM.gov synchronizes with the eGMS system as we verify your records. And I also wanted to point out SAM.gov's help section, specifically the full user guide for non-federal entities. I really recommend saving the PDF of this right there on that download PDF section, and linking this in any internal administration manuals. It provides helpful explanations of the various statuses the registration goes through, and also because there's a newer element with having to provide a notarized letter to verify that you are representing your entity accurately. It's just nice to have that guide, because I'm aware that in several state library agency organizations, there can be a great number of people who are tasked with managing the SAM registration. The third and final administrative tool I wanted to point out is the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act Subaward Reporting System, FSRS for short. And as you can see, the URL is right there, fsrs.gov. This applies to state libraries who offer grants or give subawards of more than $25,000 per award. And this really helps assist in federal government transparency efforts. The data that is submitted through fsrs.gov directly gets uploaded to usaspending.gov. So again, this is more of a due diligence responsibility, and we use this site for that purpose. So much like SAM.gov, using FSRs is relatively straightforward and a routine process. So there's not too much to cover here beyond just wanting to highlight that also like SAM.gov, their help information is actually very valuable and it's pretty robust and has a lot of really good information. But it seems like once you actually log in, it becomes difficult to know where that help material went. When you're just in the landing page, it's much easier to see where the FAQs are and where some of the training materials are. But once you actually log in, it kind of disappears. So I just wanted to point out that there's a tiny link on the bottom of the page when you're logged in that says resources page. And I think that can be pretty helpful. There's a lot of great reference guides, even further down, which you can't see in this screenshot, but there's a more technical guides, and one of the guides is for doing batch uploads. So I just wanted to point out that if some of you are giving a lot of awards at once and some of them are maybe higher dollar awards, it might be easier to just do a batch upload as you give the awards out.
All right, we are going to take a knowledge check at this point and cover some of the tools that Dennis went through so far. So a state receives an allowable cost question from a subrecipient. which section of the Grants to States Manual might be the best place to start? 5-year plan and evaluation, award cycle calendar, IMLS guidance, presentations and conferences. So the poll is out, ready for you to answer. And we're getting a bunch of answers coming through. We'll give it a few more seconds, letting you all respond. Looking good. All right, I feel like we've reached a point where we've got most of our votes in now. So Mitchell, if you will broadcast the results, we can see that most of you would have looked in the place that we would have suggested, which is the IMLS guidance section, which has information about allowable costs. There are other sections of the manual that you might find helpful in this regard too, but that would be our answer. So now we'll resume the show.
All right, so now that we have covered all of the administrative tools for this session, we're going to pivot over to the research-related tools. And the first one that I would like to discuss is Library Search and Compare. The URL is listed right there for your reference. And it's a database of all the data that comes out of the Public Library Survey. And it only has the most current PLS data in there, so it's replaced every time there's newly verified data. And it's very helpful for finding local data about libraries across the country. And there's also, as the name implies, there's some good comparative ways to look at similar types of libraries and seeing kind of how they stack up against each other. So this is what Library Search and Compare looks like when you first click on the link. And it's basically by default a big listing of all of the results for public library data. And this is pulled from the Public Library Survey, and it has the data from the most recent finalized results. And so in order to refine this list, if you wanted to dig a little bit deeper and kind of wade through the over 9,000 results, you can use this refinement panel up here. It's fairly straightforward. For a lot of them, you'll just click on it and either check some boxes based on what you want to kind of refine the results by. And then for some of the number-based ones, they'll allow you to define a range if you want to see it that way. And so when you begin to refine results, let's say I wanted to look at city libraries, as it refines, and now there's 587 results, you can begin to click in to different results and see more detail about this. And so it can be helpful, especially when you're looking at outlets next to each other like this. You can compare some of the different details there and see kind of how the trends fluctuate, and you can also shift the different trend data as you need to look at them. And then there's also a lot of download options. So you see a download button here, but there's download buttons in other areas as well. If I return to the search results and I just wanted to see, let's say, city libraries in Alabama, that would take my results down to 19. I could compare these, and then I can see more data all at once. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to refine your results and kind of look at interesting comparisons. It's helpful to, especially service area population stands out right away where you can see those differences. And then once you have a good comparative set that you like, you might want to return to, you can download this comparison as well. So there's a number of things that you can do with Library Search and Compare, and it might be helpful for some of the administrative or grant-related decisions that you might need to make. The next research tool that I wanted to share with all of you is the SPR Public View. This may be a very familiar tool for many of you, but something I just wanted to cover in the broader suite of tools that would be useful to you. And it's a public-facing database of all of the SPR project information that you all have submitted through the internal side of the SPR. And this covers project data from as far back as 2014 until 2018, because we just accepted the overwhelming majority of the SPR reports. And so this is really helpful because there's an ability to filter by several facets that are already found in the SPR. So if you're wondering why we're asking you about intents and focal areas and beneficiaries and whether something is exemplary, this all shows up in the public view. And there's also a nice state summary feature, and you can even compare those summaries across states and across fiscal years. So I'll show that right now. This is what the landing page for the SPR Public View database looks like. This is another database and resource that I recommend saving the URL as a bookmark or a desktop shortcut, just because right now there's so much content on the IMLS website for grants to states related materials that right now this particular resource is not right at the forefront, so it'd just be easier to refer to later with the bookmark. And so as you can see, it's a very straightforward system. There's one search bar. You can put any kind of keyword or search term that you're looking for in there. And what you can do is either refine by a fiscal year or the specific state that you want to look at, or you can leave these alone and just search across all years and states. Or you can leave this blank and choose one of these or both. You can't just click go and see everything. You have to either refine by a year or a state, and you can do both. That's fine as well. Another area before we get into what these search results look like is this view summaries link is a little bit out of the way, so I just like to point it out. And if you click on that, it's interesting because it shows a unique set of data related to the information that you input into the SPR. Specifically also the subaward info section. This is a dedicated area of the SPR, and if you are giving out subawards, they definitely should be filled out. And so I just want to show an example of Delaware in 2017. I click on this, you'll see that immediately you can see the amount of projects that Delaware funds with LSTA funds and how much they've received and how much they put in match. And then also what's interesting is showing the projects and how they align to the various focal areas. So what's cool about this is that you can get a snapshot view. You can also select multiple states if you wanted to see. And so adding California to the mix adds a lot more allotment funds, a lot more projects and subawards and things like that. And you can see how the focal areas shuffle out too. So that's an interesting feature that might be helpful for you. And again, just looking at the projects here, I'm just going to pick 2018 and Florida. And you can see how the results look. So you can see the abstract here by showing and hiding it there if you wanted to get a quick sense of what's in the particular project. And based on the content of the search results, you'll see various refinement areas that you can choose from. So if you wanted to see all of Florida's projects related to lifelong learning, you could select that and refine it. And intents and all of that. So it keeps going. You can really drill down and get really specific as you choose. So this is great. You can also print these results. You can export them as an Excel spreadsheet if you'd like to. And it's just a really dynamic tool, and it's very helpful. And like I said, if you click on a particular project, you can copy and paste the URL that goes with this project and share it with folks as needed. The last tool I want to share with everyone is the Awarded Grant Search tool. This is really helpful. It's a quick and comprehensive database of IMLS's discretionary awards, both in the library and museum side of things. And I indicate that it's discretionary awards. There are kind of quote-unquote stub records of grants to states awards, but it doesn't get into the project level. And that's why we have the SPR public view, because the scale of the grants to states awards are pretty massive. And so this is more useful specifically for looking up discretionary awards. And it includes the award amount, the recipient, and then project abstracts, and occasionally there are links to the full proposals as well. This is what the awarded grant search site looks like. As you can see from the breadcrumb trail up here, it's under grants, and then right away you see the link for search awarded grants. So it's very easy to find. And these are the different fields that you can choose to refine your search. You can choose any that you'd like, or as few as you would like. The grant programs are listed here, which is helpful if you wanted to search across that. Something else that's interesting about this search is that you can search by issue area. If you wanted to filter and see what's going on with digital initiatives or STEM, maybe early learning, you could filter that way. Something else I wanted to show is the program categories. So even within the National Leadership Grants, there's specific subcategories like Community Catalysts and the new app program. So if I wanted to click on Community Memory, and that be the only thing that I search and hit apply, the results show down here, which is really helpful. It shows you the award amount, the specific log number, and the abstract, as well as the proposal, if you wanted to get into the specifics of the project. What's also helpful is these download CSV or download doc options. So once you've created a search, you can actually download a CSV copy of it, or a Word document if you wanted to look at it that way. So again, this is a nice way of looking at kind of the broader spectrum of what IMLS is awarding beyond just grants to states, and it could be helpful for various research that you might be doing. The third research tool that I wanted to share briefly is the IMLS Data Catalog. This is especially helpful because it's very well curated. It's essentially a catalog with links of all of the data products that are available to you in the event that you needed to really dig into data and do a lot of comparative work. And so in the subsequent slide where we go over and demo the site itself, you'll see more, but what is nice is, in particular to the state library need, is it has the raw data for the public library survey, it has information about the state library administrative agency survey, and also the IMLS funding reports by state. So very briefly, this is what the data catalog looks like on the IMLS website. As you can see by the breadcrumb trail up here, you start in data, and then you see the data catalog link right there. So it's pretty easy to navigate to. This is basically a list of links of different data products that IMLS has to offer. We already went through library search and compare, but you can find the link here, which might be a convenient way of coming back to that. Then there's the PLS survey data. This one also could be particularly of interest to all of you, the State Library Administrative Agency survey. And then other data products as well. Something I wanted to make sure I highlight at the very bottom of this list are the IMLS funding reports by state. Some of you may recall that a couple years back, Matt and the data team did funding reports and visualized how they're laid out by state. And these can be very handy for looking at the broader picture of IMLS funding, not just grants to states, but the other sources of funding as well. And you can actually see links to these in your state profiles as well. So they come up in multiple locations. But I just wanted to let you know that those are also available through the data catalog all in one place.
Okay, we've come to our second poll, and this is our last poll. If you wanted to see examples of discretionary grant proposals, where would you look? Library Search and Compare, SPR Public View, Awarded Grant Search, or the IMLS Data Catalog. So the poll is open. You could submit your vote. We have results coming in. Thank you to all of those still tuned in and engaged with this session. We're getting some good results. And I feel like we have most of the results in, so why don't we go ahead and broadcast those results. And you have overwhelmingly selected awarded grant search, which is indeed where we would suggest looking for examples of discretionary grant proposals. Great job, everyone. We are now at the end of this session and are taking another 10-minute break.